I wouldn't suggest that they vote for any party or either party. I would suggest that the so-called Negroes become politically mature.
All right, let's talk about congressional seats. So right after the election, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez argued progressive coalition helped Democrats win, and therefore Democrats should enact bolder change. We also heard the more centrist Congressman Conor Lamb say that if he tacked that far left, he could not win his district. Do they both have a point?
Well, first of all, we lost seats, right? Arithmetic. You can argue with anything. You say, I got a point. We lost seats in a race that we were supposed to gain seats. I mean, in some ways, I'm kind of an admirer of Congresswoman Cortez, because I think she's kind of savvy. I probably don't agree with some of her ideas. But you're right, Conor Lamb was his vote went down in his congressional district. And it is hard to talk to people like Abigail Spanberger and people like this that don't believe that this kind of jargon language was counterproductive to us. And I understand where the Congresswoman is coming from, but that just doesn't comport with arithmetic at all. And I don't think it's helpful at all. I think she's a talented person, has a lot of talented. I point that out, but that's not where people are, and it's different if you're running in Southwest Pennsylvania than you're running in the Bronx. We got to be cognizant. We want to have a big party. We want to be a big tent party. We want to draw on people from around the country. We got to start acting like it.
We have reached a very dry spot in the political game. The big bad boogeyman, Trump, is gone. Biden is a disappointment. And all those black talking heads that told you to go vote for Biden are mysteriously quiet, or they're scrambling, trying to figure out how to keep their numbers up. And best believe it is about numbers for them, because they don't have a real political ideology. But what you don't see much of them doing is laying out a strategy for how we move forward. Most of them are just clinging on to the same messages that they were putting out there before the election. So I guess then the question is, well, what exactly should we be doing? Here at Bitter Dose TV, the issue that we are giving all of our focus to is the issue of reparations. The only bill out there that has anything to do with reparations is H.R. 40. I have issues with H.R. 40, but I think that we could still use it as a tool to advance our political interests. Now, after an election, I feel like the best thing to do is to analyze the results and to see where exactly we have leverage. And then from there, we should be looking at how we can use that leverage and use H.R. 40 to push forward the agenda of reparations. For anyone who is unclear, the Democrats have enough votes in the House and the Senate to pass H.R. 40. They don't actually need any assistance from the Republicans to do this. And since we have been an integral part as far as them getting into this position of power, they owe us. So what we're going to do in this video is go through all of the Democrats who have not signed on to H.R. 40.
Looking at the 2020 election results, I would say many of us were surprised. I was very surprised, to say the least, considering Democrats were set to gain seats. In the United States House of Representatives, historically it made sense. In 2016, the Democrats gained seats in the House of Representatives. In 2012, the same exact thing. In 2008, the same thing. I'm not going to show you. You can find it on really any website, but we're going to go ahead and just talk about the results and why they were shocking, because the Democratic Party was expected by 538, and counts, other media sources that expected Democrats to, in the worst case, be in the low 230s. In some estimates, they were above 250 seats. It was equally as likely for the Democrats to have 252 seats in the House as it was of the exact outcome that we have right now, at least according to statistical models. But because Republicans outperformed Donald Trump on the down ballot level, and there was record-breaking turnout on both sides, not just the Democrats, the Republicans ultimately benefited from it. And this is their first presidential election year gaining seats in the House since 2004. When we go underway with our new redistricting process, what we are going to see is that overall, many states are going to be the same. Many states are going to be the same with their congressional districts. There will be slight altercations, and some states only have one congressional district. But with some of these other Republicans, if the Republican part, some of these other Democrats, if Republicans have the ability to redistrict, and in many states they do, even Democratic states, they will redistrict the congressional districts to favor the Republican Party. If there are incumbents that the Democrats are solid on, that they know would be hard to defeat from the right, they will put them in districts that are not favorable, or they will redraw their congressional district. Now, the thing about the House rules is that representatives can run wherever they want. If they're in the state, they can run in any congressional district. But it makes it difficult to, that argument that you're not carpetbagging if you're going to a completely different part of the state. If your name recognition is strong in one subsection, but it's completely drawn into a conservative district, so either you run with no name recognition against another incumbent, or you're just going to give up this House race, whatever it might be, redistricting ultimately will put the Republican Party in the favorite to win the House of Representatives in 2022. Well, if we take a look, Tom O'Halloran has actually faced a pretty strong opposition in this race.
Well, I'm Tom O'Halloran, and I'm running for Congressional District 1, Arizona. I've my background, I was a Chicago police officer for 14 years. I was a businessman for quite some time at the Chicago Board of Trade. I served on their board of directors. I was a consultant on the integration of technology and long-range planning into financial institutions around the world. And I also was spent 8 years in the Arizona State Legislature, 3 terms in the House and 1 term in the Senate. We are placing our hardworking families and young children, our elderly, veterans, and Native Americans in harm's way by making coverage unaffordable and unattainable.
All right, we have Tom O'Halloran out in District 1 of Arizona. He is a former cop. If we look at the demographics in his community or his district, there's about 18,000 black people. Last election, he only won with a difference of 12,000 people. This is an area where I think we can have a little bit of leverage. It doesn't hurt to apply pressure.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Arizona's first district was actually in one of its closest election years. Despite the entire state shifting to the left, the district shifted to the right.
It's an honor to be here today to celebrate NCLR's 49 years of service to the Latino community. I'm excited to welcome Janet Murguia and NCLR back to Phoenix for the annual conference and Latino Expo, and to welcome thousands of leaders who are working hard every day to improve the lives of Latinos across the country.
Well, absolutely. The pathway to the White House was through black and brown votes. You don't win Colorado, New Mexico, what we think will be Arizona, Nevada without Latino votes. You don't win Nevada, Georgia, which I think will fall our way, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, without African-American votes. So,
Ruben Gallego out in District 7 of Arizona. Well, we hear a lot about black and brown and people of color, and that means that he should be in an alliance with us, so why hasn't he signed on to H.R. 40? Looking at the demographics in his district, there are about 83,000 black people. Last election, he won with a difference of 115,000.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Thank you to the gentleman for yielding. Passing the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement is essential to creating new jobs and strengthening the economy of my home state of Arizona. Those of us in border states understand the value of trading with our neighbors. And I can tell you, growing trade relationships with Mexico and Canada is essential to Arizona. And this new agreement will offer a big lift to our local companies.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. I just learned those numbers as they were announced just a few minutes ago, and I mourn for the loss of 117 of our fellow Arizonans who died just in the last 24 hours from this horrific virus. The numbers are devastating and overwhelming.
Greg Staton out in District 9 of Arizona. The demographics in his district are showing that there are 44,000 black people. Last election, he won with a difference of 82,000.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Main thing to take away here is that these districts are being targeted for a reason because of the closeness, the close nature of these races. Let's go over to California. You know, we have the 3rd congressional district. It should be right around here. The 10th is also on that list.
And so just to take a little bit of a stock from where we've been, I think we've been incredibly proud about the race that we've run over the last 2 years. I think it feels like our country has been tearing itself apart, especially lately. Our strategy, our focus has really been to do the opposite and to try to find opportunities to bring people together. And that's why I've introduced a bill that invests $7 million now to help our community and our country get ahead of this issue before it's too late. And to illustrate this, I brought this fantastic prompt, which is called the invasion curve, thanks to the California Fish and Wildlife Service. I call it the nutria curve. We can also call it the feral hog curve. We'll talk about that. And essentially what you see here is you see the exponential growth of an invasive species.
So we got Josh Harder out of District 10 in California. The demographics in that district show that there are about 24,000 black people. Last election, he won with 31,000.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
My little granddaughter, who just turned 12, she said, "Why is it taking so long?" It didn't take that long, but we all saw it on TV. We saw it happen. And thank God the jury validated what we saw. So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that?
Then we have the queen of the kente cloth, Nancy Pelosi. So she kneeled, she rocked the kente cloth, and there is no support from her as far as being a co-sponsor on H.R. 40. It's all symbolic nonsense. The demographics in her district are 42,000 black people. Last election, she won with 200,000 votes.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
While most voters are focused on the outcome of the presidential races, there are other critical races we're watching.
CBS 4's Steve Golston is here with a look at those races, including U.S. congressional matchups. Steve.
Elliot, Lauren, yes, several congressional Democrats are fending off Republican challengers this election.
Good morning, St. Petersburg. It is so good to be with you today in the Sunshine City and the Sunshine State.
As a guy who spent most of his life as a Republican before, as you said, the party left you, what were your thoughts watching the overwhelming majority of your former party members defending a woman who supported the assassination of Nancy Pelosi and the lynching of Barack Obama and Secretary of State Clinton?
We got Charlie Crist out in District 13. Used to be a Republican. In his district, we're showing there's 89,000 black people. Last election, he won with just a difference of 24,000. So this is definitely a district we should be looking at.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
I still consider myself to be a patriot, not a politician. And I'm a patriot because I love this country. My family escaped communist Vietnam and we were rescued by the US Navy, and so I owe this country my life. My parents, facing a future where their children wouldn't have opportunity or freedom or democracy, decided that we might die in search of light, but that was better than to live on in darkness. And I think if you've experienced oppression and you get a taste of freedom, that's something that you never forget. It's an indelible experience that marks and shapes your entire life.
We got Stephanie Murphy out of District 7, another person of color. But why isn't she signed on to HR 40? The black population in her district is 87,000. Last election, she won with a difference of 49,000. So this is definitely a district where we can have a lot of influence.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
We can actually take a look at those congressional districts. I'm going to zoom in because they're right next to each other. I could just click it right here. But the 7th district was a flip. It was won because the Republican incumbent retired. The Democrats picked it up. Georgia's 6th district, which is where John Ossoff actually ran back in 2017 and lost, Lucy McBath won by 10 points. Karen Handel handed yet again another election defeat in Georgia. First it was statewide, then she narrowly won a special election in the House race, then lost in 2018, and then lost in 2020. But the districts themselves, we could see the Republican Party try to combine the districts, make it safe blue. Lucy McBath or Carolyn Bordeaux would end up being, forced out of the district.
I will put Georgia first, and I will always look for common sense solutions by building bridges, not tearing people apart. The time for common sense solutions for stronger and safer communities is now. 7 years ago, my son Jordan was violently torn from my life, a victim of a gun in the wrong hands. Today, I join my colleagues and former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords to prevent more families from facing the horror and heartbreak that is brought on by gun violence.
We got Lucy McBath, District 6, out there in Georgia. She's a black woman who hasn't signed up as a co-sponsor on HR 40. The demographics in her district, 111,000 black. Last election, she won with just a difference of 36,000.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
The number of Hawaii residents who have already voted this year is more than the total number of Hawaii residents who have voted in any previous election since Hawaii became a state.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Hawaii. Madam Chair, I rise in support of my amendment to H.R. 9, which would recognize the importance of the oceans to our global climate system and the international efforts underway to include our oceans in nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, under the Paris Agreement.
We got Ed Case, District 1 in Hawaii. Demographics in his district, 14,000 black. Last election, won with a difference of 112,000.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
Okay, so the purpose of doing this is to keep an eye on the people who claim to be on our side, but aren't actually doing what we need. And we also need to check out these districts to see exactly where we have leverage. Now, if you don't know what's going on with HR 40, we are at 188 co-sponsors. What we need is 218, and we have more than enough Democrats to get to that number. So we're going to jump back into this list. please pay attention to these people moving forward. These are the people that are going to be up in the midterms next year. So if they don't move like we need them to move, maybe they don't get our vote.
I would suggest that the so-called Negroes become politically mature, realize the power that they hold in the field of politics.
I'm Lauren Underwood, Democratic candidate for Congress in Illinois' 14th Congressional District.
Laura Underwood, District 14 in Illinois. Black woman. The demographics in her district show that there are 21,000 black people. Last election, she won with a difference of 5,000 votes. We definitely need to put pressure on her.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
And an awakening, a political awakening among Negroes will make it impossible for the present Negro leaders to sell our people out as they've been doing in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the last few weeks, my office has heard from literally hundreds of concerned Illinoisans about Trump care. I've heard from a heart attack survivor whose prescription medication would go from affordable to $1,000 a day under this plan.
Sherry Bustos, District 17 in Illinois. The demographics in her district show that there are 77,000 black people. Last election, she won with a difference of 12,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Take a look at the 10th Congressional District.
Democrat Brad Schneider.
Brad Schneider defeating Nancy Rotering.
Brad Schneider will be running once again. Let me start with my two favorite words. Thank you.
Brad Schneider, District 10 in Illinois. The demographics in his district show that there's a black population of 49,000. Last election, he won with a difference of 88,000.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Over the years, Iowa's role in the presidential elections has grown in size, scope, and importance. It's the first state in the nation to hold a caucus, a tradition that has been going strong since 1972. The Hawkeye State is a good indicator of how other key swing states are likely to vote.
Let's take Iowa's 3rd district. For example, this one was very surprising that it had gone to the Democrats. At least one had gone to the Democrats in years past, but Iowa's 2nd district certainly was a shock This was solid for the Democratic Party before. There is no incumbent, I'll give you that, but it was won by only 6 votes as well. So, out of 400,000 votes, it was won by 6 votes. Honestly, it's definitely winnable for Democrats in 2022, but the neighboring district, not so much.
That's my focus. There are other folks in judiciary and intelligence doing their job. I'm doing mine, and when the time comes for me to take a vote and I have the information, then I'll make that decision.
Next, we have Sydney Axney of Iowa's 3rd District. The demographics in her district show a black population of 34,000. Last election, she won with a difference of 6,000. So this is someone we could definitely put political pressure on to get her to sign on as a co-sponsor to H.R. 40.
When you take a look at places in the Northeast, they're not targeting Vermont at large. It just wouldn't make sense. Democrats win there by very large amounts. They're not targeting Maine's 1st district, but they are targeting Maine's 2nd district. The reason, it's a much closer race, and they know that it makes sense to target closer races, especially if Donald Trump was able to carry these Republicans either to a very close point or drastically narrow up the margin than what it's traditionally used to.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Maine.
Thank you. I yield myself as much time as I may consume, and I rise to offer my amendment to H.R. 3305. It's frequently said that working men and women feel left out by their government's decision-making process. Too often in Washington, those with the greatest financial means can get the closest to the political, governmental, and regulatory process, and therefore be better able to influence it.
Next, we have Jared Golden. He is out of the 2nd District in Maine. The demographics in his district shows a black population of 6,000. Last election, he won with a difference of 23,000.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
In the 2016 election, there were 3 states that went Donald Trump's way by a narrow margin. And Michigan was the closest of those 3, with fewer than 11,000 votes separating Donald Trump from Hillary Clinton. And so right now, Michigan is front and center for the 2020 presidential election.
I'm Alyssa Slotkin, and I know we are better than our current politics have become. In the CIA, I proudly served 2 presidents, one from each party. Petty politics didn't matter then, and it shouldn't matter now.
We have Alyssa Slotkin from District 8 in Michigan. The demographics in her district are showing that there are 41,000 black people. Last election, she won with a difference of 15,000 votes. So this is someone we could definitely put pressure on.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Minnesota's 2nd Congressional District stretches from the South Metro past Wabasha. This year, incumbent Democrat Angie Craig faces a challenge from Republican newcomer Tyler Kistner.
Democrat Angie Craig is a projected winner in Minnesota's 2nd Congressional District.
If these numbers hold, she will begin her 2nd term in Congress in January.
I'm very proud to be the first lesbian mom in Congress. I'll never forget watching my wife receive the Congressional Spouse Pin, realizing that she is the first lesbian woman to do so. When LGBTQ Americans have equality under the law, they are more empowered to engage in their communities and contribute to their economies.
Then we have Angie Craig, District 2 in Minnesota, a person of color. The demographics show that in her district she has 43,000 black people. Last election, she won with a difference of 8,000 votes. So we could definitely put pressure on her.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Democrats successfully won re-election in Nevada's 2 battleground congressional districts. Representatives Stephen Horsford and Susie Lee defended their seats and avoided the fate of other Democrats in battleground districts who lost re-election bids. Lee and Horsford's victories cement a 6-year hold on Nevada's swing districts. Democrats have won in the 3 most recent elections. The result, returning Nevada's existing delegation to Washington, D.C.
I am here today for one reason: to ask that my colleagues in the House stand with me to make clear to the American people that we care more about defending students than enriching predatory schools. That is what my bill, House Joint Resolution 76, is all about.
Then we have Susie Lee. She's in the 3rd District of Nevada. She has a background doing work in the inner city. The demographics in her district show that there are 65,000 black people. Last election, she won with a difference of 12,000 votes. So we could definitely put pressure on her.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
So we finally have actual election results from the state of New Hampshire.
As we mentioned, New Hampshire voters are casting ballots in the first primary of 2020. Bernie Sanders appears to be the frontrunner in recent polls, with Pete Buttigieg close behind. The primary is crucial to the 2020 race and could help narrow down the Democratic field. Democratic Congressman Chris Pappas represents New Hampshire's 1st district, and he joins me now from Capitol Hill. Congressman, thank you so much. We know that heading into today's primary, you were undecided, but you cast your ballot yesterday. Are you ready now to make an endorsement?
No, I purposefully did not get involved in the primary contest. I thought it was really important that the voters of New Hampshire were leading this effort, having really authentic conversations with the voters, doing what New Hampshire voters do best. And for me, I'm focused on my work here in Washington.
Then we have Chris Pappas, District 1 in New Hampshire. The demographics in his district show that there are 17,000 black people. Last election, he won with a difference of 20,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
So the campaign should be to write letters, send email, make phone calls, even show up at their offices for personal meetings, all types of actions that can be taken that make sense given the political situation. We can force some of these people's hands just by having a serious conversation about the type of leverage that we hold over them. And this is how we have to play politics.
Well, from checking your voter registration to filling out and tracking your mail-in ballot, there's a lot to know ahead of this November's election. The hybrid voting plan means you can vote in person using a provisional ballot, but for the first time in New Jersey history, due to the ongoing pandemic, most votes will be cast through the mail.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute. Mr. Speaker, I rise today for my first statement from the House floor, honored and humbled to serve as a representative from New Jersey's 5th Congressional District.
In Washington, the Problem Solvers Caucus announced its membership for the 117th Congress. This year, the bipartisan caucus expanded its membership to include 16 new members, bringing total membership to 28 Democrats and 28 Republicans. The Problem Solvers Caucus was formed in 2017 as an independent member-driven group with the goal of finding common ground on issues facing the nation. That sounds good, right? For more on this now, let's bring in New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer, Democratic co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I suppose that is good news that more members wanted to join the caucus, right? That you're expanding. So let me ask you this. How does it work? If a Democrat says they want to get involved in the caucus, do they then have to find a Republican so that it can always be equal on both sides?
It's always equal 1 and 1. So now, as you pointed out, we have 28 Democrats and 20 Republicans. And you have to agree to come every week. We meet every week because it's all about building relationships and trust and working on the toughest problems. So that's what we do. When we get to 75% of us agreeing, we all stand together and vote as a block.
All right, we got Josh Gottheimer in New Jersey, District 5. The demographics in his district show that there are 40,000 black people. He won his last election with just 32,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Joining us now, Congressman Bill Pascrell. He serves on the House Ways and Means Committee. How do you see the next 3 weeks proceeding, Congressman? And do you see a way for Democrats and Republicans to work together on avoiding another shutdown?
Yes, I think once you get over the political hurdles, I think that's possible. We have a conference committee now from the Senate and the House, equally divided with Democrats and Republicans. I think you've got some good people on there from both sides of the aisle. I think compromise is in the air. These shutdowns help nobody.
So we got Bill Pascrell, District 9 in New Jersey. The demographics in his district have 69,000 black people. He won his last election with 105,000 votes. So we really don't have much influence in here. Let's see. He does have some Italian lineage, and as we know, the Italians received reparations in 1892. So maybe we can play off of that.
Congresswoman Sherrill, of course, you were watching this speech from home, as a lot of members did last night. What did you think of it? Broad proposals being talked about here.
Well, it was really great. The first thing that struck me, and I don't think I was prepared for how much it would move me really, was that image of two women standing on the dais, to see the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Vice President of the United States of America, both women. As the president himself said, maybe a little too late, but better late than never. It was just wonderful to see that. That kind of set the tone that this was different. This was new.
Mickey Sherrill, District 11 in New Jersey. The demographics in their district show that they have a black population of 33,000. They won their last election with 29,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Before we get to the candidates, let's introduce tonight's panelists. At the table this year, we have Ed McKinley, a reporter from the Times-Union, and Allison Dunn, the Hudson Valley Bureau Chief for WAMC News. For everyone's health and safety, we've spaced everyone far apart, and we do not have a live studio audience this year. Now let's introduce tonight's candidates. First, we have Congressman Antonio Delgado, a Democrat who's represented the 19th Congressional District since 2019.
I rise today because I have heard from too many parents and siblings in upstate New York who have lost a loved one to overdose from opioids. I rise because overdose fatalities are the leading cause of death for Americans under 50.
Antonio Delgado, District 19 in New York, of African American and Puerto Rican descent. The demographics are showing in his district they have a population of 35,000 black folks. Last election, he won with a difference of 41,000 votes. Now, we really don't have a lot of influence as far as votes, but he is of the lineage. Apparently, he is like some conscious rapper or something like that.
Sucker free freestyle, AD The Voice, Static Entertainment. Grew up in upstate NY, my pedigree. Something so special, only I can set it free. Let it be known, voice on the track and then some. Educated, tall, black, and yes, handsome. Don't get it twisted. No, I'm not a pretty boy. Not from the city, but I still make city noise. Loud, black, and proud. Hear me break it down like a compound fraction. War renowned, my sound vicious. Like the ants on Delicious. Inconspicuous, never when I spit the drama. More committed to my truth than a suicide bomber.
Kurt Schrader, Democrat. City where I live, Canby. Skills. Before being elected to Congress, I was a veterinarian, small business owner, and farmer. I received degrees from Cornell University and University of Illinois.
Yesterday, after a brief standoff with lawmakers, President Trump begrudgingly signed a bill approving $900 billion in COVID-19 aid. And I say begrudgingly because days earlier, he blasted leaders for only including a $600 one-time stimulus check. He said he wanted that one-time payment, there it is, to be $2,000, $2,000. And then that's when things kind of got weird because suddenly Democrats and President Trump, they were on the same page. What? Democrats also wanted $2,000 stimulus checks, and Republicans in Congress were now the odd party out wanting the smaller checks, which brings us to today when the House of Representatives passed a bill increasing those one-time payments to $2,000 like the president asked. Even 44 Republicans voted for it. However, 2 Democrats did not, and one of them was Congressman Kurt Schrader from Oregon. He explained why he voted no on the House floor earlier today.
We got Kurt Schrader out in Oregon, District 5. The demographics show that they have a population of 6,000 black people in that district. Last election, he won with a difference of 30,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Ed O'Keefe joins us now for more on this closely fought presidential race. Ed, so good to see you.
I like the way you put it, the 5th day of Tuesday.
For you especially, you've been doing a great job. We've been enjoying watching. Big picture right now, where do things stand at this moment?
Well, as Michelle said, 4 or 5 states really, the fate of the republic hangs in their hands. Pennsylvania.
We're honored that she's made time in her busy schedule to speak with us. I'll turn it over to Representative Houlihan.
Thanks, Susan, and I apologize for holding my microphone up like this through the duration. It's really, really nice to be with you guys.
We got Chrissy Houlihan in District 6 out of Pennsylvania. The demographics in her district show that there's a population of 48,000 black people. Last election, she won with a difference of 49,000.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Not wild about Donald Trump and his destructive agenda? Meet Susan Wild, the only mom in this race for Congress.
Susan Wild, District 7 in Pennsylvania. The demographics in her district show that there are 53,000 black people. Last election, she won with a difference of 14,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our town hall. I really enjoy doing town halls because it gives me a chance to do what God wants us to do twice more than we talk, which is listen.
Matt Cartwright, Pennsylvania, District 8. The demographics in his district show that there's a population of 42,000 black people. Last election, he won with a difference of 12,000 votes, so we do have a lot of influence.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
From Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the chairman for his hard work on bringing us this bipartisan, bicameral compromise that will get things done for our nation's veterans. Madam Speaker, my contributions to today's bill are sort of a mix of old and new.
We got Connor Lab, Pennsylvania, District 17. The demographics in his district showed a total population of 43,000 black people. Last election, he won with a difference of 10,000 people. So this is another person that we can put political pressure on and make them sign on the HR 40 as a co-sponsor.
Closer to home here, there were a couple of races that will also have national implications.
Channel 2's Vincent Crivelli live in Humble this morning. Vince is taking a look at the results of the congressional races, District 2 and 7. Vincent, good morning.
One good morning. The race for District 7 was a nail-biter.
I'm Lizzie Panel Fletcher, and I'm running to represent Texas's 7th Congressional District here in Houston. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to urge my colleagues here and in the Senate to vote to end this shutdown. Across Texas, there are nearly 30,000 federal workers who will not receive their paychecks today.
We have Lizzie Panel Fletcher, District 7 out in Texas. Demographics in the district show that there's a population of 100,000 black folks. Last election, she won with a difference of 10,000 votes. This is someone we can put a full court press on and get them to completely flip.
And to all the volunteers, the self-organizers, and the families who support them, thank you. This is your victory. Thank you for all that you do and will continue to do for our community here in North Texas. I will try to match your commitment to service with my own.
Colin Allred out in Texas, District 32. The demographics out in this district is showing a population of 115,000 black folks. Last election, he won with a difference of 21,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
No matter the candidate who gets the nomination, Congressman Mark Vesey is predicting a Democratic landslide in 2020. That is one of the topics we covered when Bud Kennedy and I sat down with him. Congressman, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Let's begin with 2020.
Yeah.
You're predicting a blue wave in this state. Candidates haven't even been nominated yet, so I'm curious, what do you expect is going to drive Democratic voters to the polls?
Oh, I think that Democratic voters are highly motivated to make sure that that Trump is no longer President Trump come January 20th, 2021. And so I think we're going to have a very robust turnout, better than what you saw in 2018. I think that we're also going to continue to do well with voters that we typically, had trouble with in prior elections.
How so?
Because you hear their frustrations. You hear their frustrations. They want to get something done when it comes to background checks. They want to do something when it comes to closing the gun show loophole. They want to do something when it comes to prescription drug prices, and they just really want some sort of normalcy to return back because they're tired of what they're seeing come out of the Oval Office every day.
Mike Vesey out in District 33 in Texas. The demographics in his district is showing a black population of 118,000. Last election, he won with a difference of 66,000 votes.
And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
The laws changed on July 1st that allowed no excuse absentee voting, and that changed everything for Virginia. The coronavirus encouraged more people to vote absentee. The campaign started encouraging people to vote absentee, and so we've got absentee voting numbers in Virginia like we've never seen before.
Is one of the most watched elections in our area, the rematch for the 2nd congressional district race. More than 12 hours after polls closed, Congresswoman Elaine Luria was declared the winner. It's the second time she's defeated former Congressman Scott Taylor. Angela Vargas spoke to Luria today about her victory.
On election night, the first results showed Scott Taylor with the lead. The race too close to call before midnight, but once early voting numbers rolled in, Luria jumped ahead of Taylor with a 15,000 vote lead.
So I knew that I would have a sizable advantage in those early votes, and when the numbers came in, that was clear.
Luria believes the petition scandal that rocked Taylor's campaign in 2018 convinced people to vote for her.
I think that, when voters were reminded of that issue and the pending investigation, it certainly swayed their decision process.
Elaine Laura, District 2 in Virginia. The demographics show that they have a black population of 145,000, and she won her last election with just 21,000 votes.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
When I was a little kid, I loved to ask questions. I loved puzzles. I would begin sentence after sentence with, "I have a question." It aggravated my parents to no end, as you might imagine. But I had this curiosity. I wanted to know things. I wanted to know everything. And I always knew I wanted to be a CIA officer. I used to write my diary in code. I would spy on my sisters. And I dreamed of one day being a CIA officer.
At the U.S. Capitol, let's discuss with Representative Abigail Spanberger, a Democrat of Virginia. She was in the House chamber when rioters stormed the building. And let me quickly ask you, are you okay? How did it go for you personally? How scared were you?
Thank you for having me on, Wolf, and thank you for focusing on this insurrection and making sure that every viewer has the ability to see the photos and hear some of the stories. I was in the House chamber. We were, of course, there to perform our constitutional duty of recognizing the electoral results of the 2020 election. Things escalated very, very quickly. It became clear that there had been insurrectionists who had breached the Capitol, who had entered the building. They put the chamber on lockdown. Very quickly, I said to the colleagues who were around me, take your pins off. We wear these congressional pins to identify ourselves throughout the Capitol. But when there are potential terrorists about, you certainly don't want to be identified as a member of Congress, potentially their targets.
We have Abigail Spanberger, District 7 in Virginia. The demographics show in her district there's a black population of 148,000. Last election, she won with 8,000 votes, so we definitely have leverage over her.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
The president's going into this race, particularly in Washington state, he's unpopular. And there's always an impact on ballot.
The holiday break pretty much over for lawmakers in Congress.
Yeah, the return to Washington, D.C. also marks 1 year in office for the freshman representative from Washington's 8th District, Dr. Kim Schreier. She's joining us here this morning. Appreciate you being here, Congresswoman.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Kim Schreier. I'm proud to represent the 8th District in Washington. I'm the first pediatrician elected to Congress and currently the only female doctor in Congress. I'm also a patient with type 1 diabetes. My life depends on insulin, so the high cost of prescription drugs affects me and people like me every day.
We have Kim Schreier, District 8, Washington. The black population in her district is 24,000. Last election, she won with about 15,000.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
In response to the president's visit, Democratic Congressman Ron Kind participated in a bipartisan virtual event about the stakes of this election.
Thank and commend you and the ranking member Brady for your intense focus and interest in enhancing retirement savings opportunity in this country. Obviously, with the litany that you just ran off, there's a lot of fingerprints on this legislation, and rightly so. It's long overdue, and it makes sense.
We have Ronald James Kind, Wisconsin's 3rd District. The black population in this district is 7,000. He won his last election with 10,000 votes.
And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
I mean it, especially those moments, and especially those moments when this campaign was at its lowest ebb. The African American community stood up again for me. You've always had my back, and I'll have yours.
This is the moment that we're in. These are the cards that we've been dealt. We just have to figure out how to play them. I understand that reparations seems almost fantastical based on the history we've had in this country. I'm not saying that this is something that will be easy, but just because the goal seems insurmountable doesn't mean we need to think in some fantastical way as far as how this thing can actually be accomplished. It is in front of us. It's not some secret that's hidden deep down in the bowels of the Library of Congress. It doesn't require esoteric knowledge. What it requires is political education and the organizing to generate the political will.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.